Okay, so last night I got home from a boys' trip, which had a couple girls there, so I should probably stop calling it a boys' trip. But this was a dope mix of people I've known since I was a kid and people I met while making a short film I like to bring up on here all the time called Kickback. This is a mini doc on shooting an iconic image.
Yeah, it might even be better to get rid of Georgie's kick off the frame. That's funny crap.
Yes, you would. Many a memory was made on this trip, some amazing nights of cooking at home, drinking too much, doing some other stuff, and overall just expanding our inner consciousness and connections as friends. And then, as we were packing up on the final day, and I pulled up Spotify to queue up what I'd be listening to on the ride home, I remembered, oh right, JOJI's dropping a new album. Once I was dropped off home, showered for the first time in days, and hopped into bed early, I queued the thing up and gave it a front-to-back listen. Then another one. Then another one. As my brain disconnected from my body, which had partied way too hard this past week. But yeah, as I'm recording, it's the following day. I'm working on a few things, uploading a new video in a bit, setting up for the next few, yet I'm still impulsive enough to crank out this one, since hey, I like JOJI, and I might as well talk about him while the newest LP is fresh. Plus, I want to use this pretty yet overall useless background footage from North Carolina for something. Smithereens by JOJI. Overall, pretty. It's another JOJI album. In some ways, it's a little disappointing since it's substantially shorter than either of his previous two, and he covers a lot of familiar ground in terms of rhythm and texture. Still though, there are pockets of evolution here on individual tracks. There's some pads and arpeggiators I didn't expect to hear, which reminded me of Todd Rundgren's work from the mid-70s. A motherfucker, I'll have to dedicate a video or 6 to someday. The acoustic guitars on Dissolve remind me of Pink Floyd's Animals. And the second track, Feeling Like the End, oddly enough reminded me of Julia Holter, a phenomenal art pop singer associated with orchestral arrangements and stream of consciousness songwriting. Glimpse of Us has become his most successful single to date, and honestly, it's easy to see why. Dude's simply immaculate in making a modern pop ballad when that's the one thing that he's focusing on. All of this supplements the signature JOJI sound, the harmonies, the vocal modulation, the mixed-fi approach to the stems, and the general sad boy energy he's been rocking since Chloe Burbank. Yeah, as you saw here, the verdict is pending. Allow me to craft the verdict now in real time. This will go well. I popped into a few reviews of this jaunt. Annie Fantani, pretty mixed on it. Said he liked the singles. Said he liked some touches on specific songs. Elsewhere, there is quite a bit of praise. It's the highest ranked on AllMusic currently. Previous album only got 4 stars, and Ballads 1 was niche enough not to get any AllMusic rating. Few other publications found it to be one of his stronger statements as an artist, and having listened to it about, 6 or 7 times all the way through, and having revisited Nectar, I've come to appreciate the latter's ambition as well as its sequencing. Like, there are stretches on this album that just flow really fucking well. The opening's pretty strong, and when you eventually get to the stretch that has the 3 lead singles, them being Gimme Love, Run, and Sanctuary, that's such a consistently good stretch on top of being a diverse patch of music that demonstrates his range as a performer and an artist. And then going back to Smithereens, while it does technically have some of his strongest singles, in broader terms of structure, people have pointed out that there is a first half of fully developed, more fleshed out songs versus a second half of songs that JOJI did on his own production-wise. Those tracks, of course, all being fully capitalized as a bit of a throwback to his first album, I guess. There's just a tendency for capital stylization in this particular genre of pop music, made for Zoomer alt pop, of course. Those who like lo-fi in a very specific way. I meant to be playing this in the background while I recorded to cut down my anxiety, which I'm also tempering with tea. But no, I do conceptually like the idea of having straightforward pop tunes on one portion of a release, followed by more avant-garde experimental things. That structure actually shares a bit of kinship with Low by David Bowie, something of a turning point for that guy's career, where he truly started to crystallize his middle period sound, with the first half primarily being made of plasticky avant pop, followed by a latter half of largely instrumental, experimental compositions. So you can see the parallels there, and yet at the same time, none of the quote-unquote experimental parts really shape up to be as distinct or memorable when it comes to Smithereens. They're still JOJI tracks, they're still textural, oh so effective at filling the void when you're studying. But I think that just speaks to one of the greater flaws of this project. It's just kind of more of the same. I'm bitch-made and JOJI pilled. I like what's here. It's a pretty smooth listen, front to back, but so were his last two albums. Both of those having the luxury of being his first and his sophomore record, and this oddly enough ended up being the more sophomoric release in his full-length discography thus far. This all to say, I like it because I'm pussy whipped for JOJI. It's also, pound for pound, objectively, kinda mid. Do with that what you will. This does give us a direction for future projects. I'll sum it up in one word: progression. That's right, Georgie Miller, not to be confused with the director of Mad Max. You and your Close to the Edge by Yes Looking Ass album cover. I want you to go full prog pop. Tap into that rich history of earth-shattering records you've up to this point simply kissed, or unwittingly echoed, or unwittingly kissed. Whoops. Restraining order. I want you to pull a Frank Ocean on your next LP, or a Time Era ELO, or a Cuddy, or a Yee, you know, without the unmedicated God complex. Your aural identity has congealed into an unforgettable sound that's flexibly mapped to genre blending and experimentation. Go all in. Make something befitting of those over-the-top concerts and high-concept specials you occasionally make. Oh yeah, I should probably talk about... After waiting in line for over an hour, finally sitting down in the comfort of a full house and warming up to a very chill and talented opening act. Dude has crooner's pipes in 2022. Go scope that shit out. It's cool. Me and my partner got to watch the Jodester himself swag his way through a grab bag of old jingles and more recent singles. One plays eating Pringles. I have shingles. It was a fun night overall, and neither of us regret going. Now, not too dissimilar to the music itself, when talking about the Smithereens concert, I find that I'm critically split, being satisfied with what I got, yet longing very deeply to see the artist truly come into his full flower. Half of me is a ride or die, easy to appease with JOJI music simply being JOJI music. I have been a longtime supporter of George, his brand of humor and artistry, and I am in on the in-joke that defines most of his projects. Whether it was Pink Guy's albums, Frank's lore videos, and even some stuff that falls under the JOJI moniker, there's a sense of, yes, I've built up the skills to pursue this medium, but I'm also a goofy, stupid dude who likes memeing on the fact that he's been given the chance to do this in the first place.
Unblock me, bitch!
So this in mind, I'm all about the fact that he took a bunch of pee breaks in the middle of the show.
Let's go, Boston.
This motherfucker really going to pee mid-show, Boston, bro. It is what it is.
I I love that there was a soundboard of Zoomer memes used between the songs. I love that there was a needlessly robust way of launching shirts into the crowd that only really worked half the time. I also find a millennial satisfaction in the hype man having played a few tracks off his phone before Droove came on. I mean, that's something that could only happen today. That's fucking rad. I think it's funny as hell that they played Smash Ultimate on stage, despite me sitting in the literal worst spot to watch it from. The program is completely on brand with what I know about JOJI and provided a platform through which to express all facets of his persona. The SoundCloud legend, the doofus, and at times, the musician. Ah, there's my issue though. At times. The other half of me, unfortunately, works at a concert space, an indoor-outdoor venue that hosts everything from basic vanilla country pop that sells out while it sells out, to alt-pop titans with very forward sounds and messaging, to Zoomer fests that touch all the genres that none of my 45 and over coworkers go out of their way to listen to. This is to say, I've seen it all. Good shows, bad shows, mid shows, and rad shows. Them shows that we chose to unfroze our heart grows. A heart grows where you goes to unthaw your heart woes. Dance out the FOMO with hobos that grow rows of weed and acid.
What the fuck was that?
I don't know, man. That was fucking weird.
You can't unthaw something, that's just freezing it again.
For these very real, not at all non sequitur reasons I just said, a good bit of JOJI's concert felt empty and underwhelming to me. As I've touched on briefly in older videos, the hip-hop setup isn't my preferred format of music. That said, in the time since making that meme, I've come to get it more. Wu-Tang members and Belle Biv DeVoe doing their thing with hype men and backing tracks is definitely awesome in its own way. But I think half of that has to do with them putting their all into it, sans any irony or comedic cynicism. The lax pro approach to the performance and between-song interplay, while serviceable and funny at times, can get pretty monotonous, and the neo-boomer within me remembers that if I told any of the dudes at work that I paid over $70 a ticket for this, they'd end me. It's a conflicting place to be in. Yeah, it's dope to see this dude who, in many ways, is a hero of mine, singing some of his biggest hits in a live setting. But you've got this comically elevated stage, a bunch of mographs, and two actual instrumentalists off to the side who I often forget are even there. And the means of reminding me that they are there should at no point be, "Oh shit, DC, you seeing the shit?" When all homie did was play 4 notes of his improv, like I hear it. He went, he's gotta do more before you can go,
Okay, make a fucking noise for the man on the axe.
Yo, DC, make some noise for Jay Snow over here, bro. What the fuck?
What would be so much cooler in the future would be more hands-on, played out to the crowd energy, less insistence from the tour itself that this shit in fact is getting mad crazy. What do you want from me? And more direct contact and amping from the music itself, acknowledging the balconies more, having a stronger frontman element seeing as it is his show. A bunch of nitpicky shit that most fans obviously don't need, but it would certainly make it easier for me, as a spoiled brat of the live show, to wreck at his place of employment. Well, I mentioned Todd, Rundgren, and Pink Floyd earlier. Are you really surprised that I want the instruments to have a greater role in the stage show? Like, if I truly have to be that guy, compare it to Droove. Oh shit, wrong. This is a much more conventionally flowing stage presence. He waved up to us in the nosebleeds and he moved about the stage and never let the antics break the flow of the set list. His backing band was also hella into it. Extensive solos where they really got to show their chops. They were clearly having a good-ass time being there. And I don't doubt for a second that JOJI and co weren't also stoked to be there. I can't stress this enough, it's a very fun show. It's just the overall chakras coming off of the physical presence was lacking. IMHO. Maybe I'm just not made for this style of music. In the end, as I said, and do ultimately mean, I'm glad I went. It was a different experience from the punk and indie shows I had seen earlier this year in my area, and aside from my hang-ups on the finer details of performing to a crowd of this size, George sang his heart out enough for me to be a satisfied fan. What I can't forgive, however, is them not playing Run. I like Run. Of course, ultimately, run or no run, enjoy the concert I did. I don't think I once addressed the hype man by his actual performing name. Savage Realm. Good lad. Funny as fuck. Good chem with Georgie, but I was able to determine that he is in fact of sound mind and soul. when he did his own rendition of Gary Come Home from SpongeBob. Saint. Confirmed. Now, I would also like to end this on an upper rather than a midder or a downer. So I'll show you all what is easily the funniest part of the entire show. Take it away, Senpai. I saw someone I knew out the window.